Okay, welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Investor Podcast. Okay, so you can already see, literally see, that this is a different version. Well, you could just be listening to this, but we are starting our journey into video with the Spiritual Investor Podcast. Now, we've been thinking about doing this for a while. It's not that big of a deal, but at first, I was like, well, why would someone care to just watch me sit here and talk? And the funny part is that half the time I don't even sit here. So I was telling my team, I'm like, okay, well, I said, I made an agreement when I started this podcast 4 years ago that I was just going to come on here and I was going to connect with you and I was going to do it from a process of not filtering. And I decided then that I wasn't gonna filter any of the content, and I wasn't gonna have a certain structure to it, although I knew I wanted these to be a little bit more shorter and concise. And we really haven't changed much from that, format, and I know a lot of you guys really enjoy this and get a lot of value from it, so it's kinda like, how can we just incorporate the video and have it part of the process? And it does give me, I feel like, a greater connection to all of you. Um, but it's also, here's a bit of a forewarning that I could get up and just go sit over there and you guys will just have to come with me in this. But anyways, that's not the reason you're here. The reason that you're here is so that you can move beyond, so that you can like traverse that gap that you feel. It's like that there's more money out there for you. You can feel it. You know that you are giving so much value, even if you feel like you could get better at that. Um, you know your worth. And it's not worth from a dollar amount, and it has nothing to do with even the 3D world. That's worth is the same thing as your inner truth. And it's actually not related to money, even though people try and relate it to money. Um, you're just switching your energetic currency for whatever type of abundance you choose. If you choose for it to be money, it will be money. And the money is going to come to you in the maximum amount allowed by your current money vibration. All of this stuff is really simple. A lot of people choose different types of abundance. They choose, love or organic food or, you know, um, building a legacy account for their children or whatever. Like, it's all energy, and we live in a world where we get to, sort of pour our energy into different, types of containers like this, right? This podcast it's an energetic container, and it's basically taking the energy that I'm calling through, which isn't me. I don't think that we're conduits is what we are when we're in our, authentic self. When we're not, then we are creating the lessons for ourselves so that we can expand into the greater version of us, which is more of our authentic self. Um, on my journey in this, I have had to let go of that being good or bad and that being right or wrong because if we don't, then we constantly feel like we're having to do something, like I'm having to get rid of my ego, or I'm having to do something to clear my energy to step into greater consciousness. And then that takes us out of the space of creativity, that takes us out of the space of play. And the reality is, you could have all of the money that you wanted if you were willing to do one thing. And this one thing actually is something that you were brought here to do. Um, we're just now moving into a time where this is something that people really would do. Um, this is something that people are training themselves into, and I believe this is going to be the norm. If you think about what's happening out there right now with AI, I was just interviewed on a podcast yesterday, and I was with my friend Peter, and he is a yoga master, and he said that, he was thinking about, what the impact of AI is gonna be in the world. He's 70, And he's, kind of thinking about what's this world gonna look like soon, And it's interesting because I can see on one hand, because he was in some fear about, well, and maybe it's gonna take over. I can see on one hand how, um, anything's possible because we live in a parallel reality, and what reality is gonna be chosen by most people? But at the same time, like, one thing that can't happen is consciousness is consciousness, and AI will outthink us, that's for sure. But consciousness is the absence of thinking. It's the void, and money neutrality is the void, and the void is the invite, and the invite is what calls the new power in, and we don't always know what that new power is. You know how when sometimes, like, things just kinda turn out, like, you might be in a relationship and you're like, "Oh, I thought if I did it this way, that was gonna just totally send it, in the wrong direction," and then that thing ended up being perfect. Um, I think what we're moving towards is actually taking the thinking off of us because that is the one thing holding us back. Um, and consciousness is what we have. That's sort of our ace in the hole, right? And we're learning to use the access point now. Like, people say, okay, we're waking up. I think we've all been awake and not awake, at different times. And I think when we are awake, uh, how you know that you're awake, this is just my own experience. You can have your own interpretation of it. But how I know when I'm awake is um, I don't need anything. Um, there aren't any problems. Because when I'm awake, nothing can be perceived as a problem because there's no lack. It doesn't exist in that world, and there's no time. Like, I do not feel time. And it's funny because when I shift back into feeling those things, which is what we're supposed to do, by the way, we're supposed to shift back, and then the key is we notice we've shifted back, and then we make a choice. Are we gonna stay in this, and we're gonna play in this space over here a little bit. And as Eckhart Tolle talks about, you can be two beings at one time. So you can be the observer and you can be the one who's in the 3D action. And so you're not trying to take yourself out of life. You're trying to go back into life as a different way of being. And so what this is doing, kind of tying this in with AI, is that we're so stuck in the thinking right now, especially if you look at the economy and everything that's going on. It's like, oh my God, uncertainty has just drawn so many people in. And now, of course, the market's gone back up and now everyone's back into, oh shit, I should have invested. It's just boom. It's just like a rubber band. It goes back and forth. I watch it all the time. Um, but what is happening is um, when a system breaks, I call it breaking of the structure. And so I teach this inside of the SI method. It's 5 parts, and one of them is breaking the structure. When the system breaks, that allows the new space for something to come in, right? You know this. And there's nothing that's going to get us out of the thinking mind because the thinking mind wants to stay in the thinking mind. And that's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, have you noticed the egos? I mean, seriously. So we're seeing a force that has come in that is actually going to cause us to be in a position where we need to move beyond the thinking mind because the thinking mind is no more our leverage factor like it was, in the old world paradigm, let's say, the thinking mind. Okay, how intelligent could you be? How many degrees could you have? Um, Now it's like, are you utilizing these other senses that we innately have? that some people think it's just airy-fairy, and some people are really, really tapping into them. I just got off of a call with my mastermind members. It's our second week, and I gave them a practice on how to begin using energy as the money conduit, how to start calling more money in now. And it's a practice, and we even practiced it on the call. And it's something that our job going forward isn't to get more education and to problem solve even more, right? Because a solution to a problem, just then there's another problem and there's another solution and there's another problem, and right, and AI is going to outperform that anyways. The solution and our job, I'll say, is to go within to the point that we have swapped using time to now using momentum. And momentum can be used to as like the gas in the engine to sort of drive the actions that we're taking. And the energy that we've been building, especially you here with the spiritual practice, the opening that you now have, um, your practice is to learn how to put that out into the world. So it's your frequency. And so it's how you're vibrating. And then that determines your frequency. And then that's your magnetism. And then that is what's going to bring everything to you. Now, a lot of times we go out and our frequency has risen. We can feel that. And the 3D form of frequency is it's opportunity. And so what we see is we see these opportunities, but you felt that in your body where you're like, oh, like that feels like too much, or I can't respond to this person, or I'm nervous when I go on stage, or something like that, or I don't have time to write the book, right? These are all opportunities that are there that your old self is coming in and blocking because your old self doesn't feel safe at that new frequency. And so I said, a few minutes ago, I said that you could have all the money in the world if you were willing to do one thing and you have the power to do that one thing. So tying this in with frequency, you can have all the money in the world if you know how to match your frequency to that money. Well, how do you do that? You drop the past. Because if you had no past, then you could call all the money in that you wanted to because you would have no relationship with the concept of not having money. And if you saw that as your path to wealth and you had a structure where you could practice that, and literally the world, the 3D world, is showing you scenarios where you then put the practice to the scenario. So it's like, think of the practice as the container. And then the 3D world is giving you circumstances. And what you're doing is you're like taking that and you're dropping it in the container, right? It's like you're dropping it in, you're dropping it in, you're dropping it in. And then that becomes your embodiment. Because over time, a practice becomes your new normal. And so you're at a new frequency, but you don't feel that you're in a frequency because you can't actually feel a frequency. You think you can because you think when you feel good and you're high vibe, you're on a different frequency, but you're not. You're just feeling your own emotions. You're just feeling your own vibe. There's different ways that you can tell that you are on a different frequency, and I won't get into all of that. But what I want to really hone in on here with you is that we've been doing these, meditation, breath work, kundalini yoga, even walking. Like we already have the knowingness that this is like kind of has that's the keys to the kingdom, right? And each of us, we get different experiences from that and different portals and openings. But there's still this gap of, well, there's the meditation over here, and then there's real life over here where we have to pay the bills. And so what the spiritual investor does is it bridges the gap. And so it teaches you how these concepts actually merge into one, and that your life, when it comes to money and investing and calling in wealth, because it's all just one big circle. Anything related to money also becomes a practice. And out of that practice, you are expanding into greater consciousness that is you. And so the idea behind it, and one of the ways that I help people navigate the bridge, and by the way, I'm always looking for the accelerated route. That's just who I am. I have a fast momentum. Probably you guys do too. And if you don't have what you feel is a fast momentum, that's okay. You don't have to have that. You really just have to be more in sync with where you are and be good and be in reconciliation with that so you can draw the power from that. So if you need to rest every 3 days, then you need to rest every 3 days. You still have the same amount of power because we're all born with the same amount of power. But when you really, really can get that you're living in a middle ground, then what happens is the deeper you go into yourself, the more you realize that everything is a choice. And then you're choosing which space do you want to play in. And when you start choosing which space do you want to play in and you get really good at choosing it, what happens because we live in an and world, because everything is abundance. We live in an and world, not an or world. Because of that, then what happens is that bridge collapses and it collapses, it diminishes, and you're actually doing both. And so just as I said, Eckhart Tolle talks about you can be in a state of presence and you can actually be out here in the world at the same time. He even related it to a percentage, and who knows, this must be from his mind. And he says you can be 80 to 90% present and still be fully engaged and out here in the world. Now that is power. Now that to me, I'm like, oh, that's a hell yes. And can you see how, like, you at that level, playing at that level, you're the leader of the next world. Like, you are literally the tiny, tiny fractional percentage that is going to be able to lead people into their own state of being and their own power and connection to source. Because you're so connected to it, but you're not connected to it. You're the modern day yogi, right? And you're not connected to it to the point where you need to sit in the cave. You're in the cave in your mind, but you're out here. And money is supporting you in that. And so your work that you're doing here in order to open yourself to receive money is actually your spiritual journey. It is your responsibility to be wealthy if you want to live in that state of being. Because that extra 20% when you're out here, guess what you're doing? You're just connecting. You're not going out there and getting money. You can't even do that anyways. I mean, you could throw a hammer and you can operate based on the old paradigm, which is exhaustion and based on time, but you're not here to do that. If you wanted to do that, you wouldn't be even listening to me talk. And you can see right now how this breaking of the structure is showing up in the world, and you get the choice whether you're going to move to the 3D side and you're going to be in uncertainty, or whether you're going to move to the universal side and you're going to use the energy. Now, I'll give you an example of how this worked in my world and the students inside the Spiritual Investor. I'll give you an example of that just over the last 4 weeks. So, depending on when you're listening to this, the tariffs, that whole dilemma came out I think probably 6 weeks ago, but then there was a time lag on it. I think it was probably 8 weeks ago, and there was a time lag on it. Anyways, about 4.5 weeks ago is when there was the deadline of, okay, they go into effect. So that's really the more important date. Um, well, of course, if you're watching the market at all, you know that the market just, went sideways. It dropped and then it came back up and it dropped further and further and all that. Well, I immediately just went on social media and I said, do not let this alter your wealth plan. Your wealth plan comes from within. Certainty comes from within. Read between the lines here. This is basically just the way that this political system works, which is go out and throw fire in the ring so that you have some leverage. And I was like, there's room for renegotiation here. Well, I do not have a crystal ball. So I just want to preface with that. I don't know if I'm always right or wrong because I don't judge myself based on right or wrong. The moment I do, I pull myself back into 3D because there are no labels in the universal field. What I do though is I go, I have a knowingness about this. And I go, my knowledge of finance tells me if I have a knowingness about it, guess what I should do? I should invest. And I should tell other people to invest. And I should help them. And that's exactly what I did. And so I didn't have room to be in uncertainty, nor would I have been just because I operate in money neutrality. But I was in creation. And that's the thing. You can't be in uncertainty if you're creating. And so I created, on stories, I talked to the team about it. Uh, r- you know, we did all types of things. We put it into the content. I shared it with the mastermind. Um, but I myself, I sat down one day. This was on a Tuesday. And so the market had really dropped the most on that Monday. So the very next day, it was still really low. I'm like, okay. And I don't know either whether it's going to keep dropping or not. Of course, you look at the news and it's like, oh my God, we've gone to hell in a handbasket, right? So I invested like $50,000 and I did it in a series of about 10 minutes because I'm like, I know what I want to buy. I do this for a living. I literally, I help people inside the program buy stocks all the time. We have a list actually. So, and the funny thing is, we have a list, and guess where I pulled my stocks from to buy for my own personal account? From that list. Well, I put it actually. We have an SI report. It's called the SI report. If you're not on it, I put the stats in there today. Actually, uh, yeah, so by the way, if you want to get on the SI report, you just go to thespiritualinvestor.com. It's a free report we send out, and I do a little brief of the economy and all that. Um, so yeah, April 2nd, tariffs went out. A week later, so what I did is I said, if you'd bought Microsoft a week later, you would have paid $353. If you had, then a week later after that, it went up to 392. So you would have seen a gain. The week after that, which would have been 2 weeks ago, no, 1 week ago, it went down to 355. So then you would have thought, oh God, here we go, here's a loss. But the thing is, that's what happens. Like investing accounts go up and down. They're supposed to. It's the same thing as your own emotions. You have emotional highs and emotional lows. But the lesson here is today, Microsoft is at 436. So if you had bought 1 month ago, right? Just based on, whether you heard me say it or anybody else, I don't think a lot of people actually tell you to keep investing. You know what I saw? Anyways, let me finish this up. You would have had a 23% gain for the month. And where can you get a 23% gain and do almost nothing? So I'm always looking for ways to sort of have you go, okay, investing is my next thing, expanding money is my next thing. If Microsoft, going from, 353 to $436 in a time where everybody said that we're going into recession. And most money people, by the way, and financial people, and I have no shade, I think everybody is doing uh, the best job that they can, and everybody's meeting people where they are. But I nearly had a heart attack with how many people who teach about investing in money completely changed their story right after the tariffs went out. And suddenly they were like, you need to have a cash reserve. This is a big money person, by the way, probably one of the biggest. Suddenly changed his stance from a 3-month cash reserve to now you need 12 months of a cash reserve. Told people that at the most uncertain time there was when people were scared shitless. And I'm like, how is that helping people? You're making them feel more fearful because how many of these people can suddenly, just because they saw your social media post, go click a button and suddenly change their savings from 3 months to 12 months? Not many. And I was like, I just have to watch this and hope that people are really staying centered within themselves and seeing that it is very easy to react to situations. And it feels very convincing too, because if you've already trusted this person, then you're not going to see that they're actually giving you financial advice from a place of reaction because you already see them as a sound financial person. And that's why you don't trust the financial system, by the way. It's not your fault. You don't trust the financial system because A, well, it was behind a black veil for a lot of years and you couldn't even go online and buy your own stock. But B, there's a lot of fear when it comes to money. And we have this assumption that if people have all this financial knowledge, like I've taken all those financial exams too. I was an energy trader for over a decade and I took the same exams that financial advisors took. It's just I don't hold the license because I don't want to. I don't want to be a financial advisor, but I want to have a solid foundation so that I can help people and educate people, right? But what you don't realize is I can have all this, anybody can have all this, but that does not take away their limiting money beliefs and blocks. They're still only able to speak to you from their context. And so going back to this AI thing, one of the things that we have to train ourselves for is to stop actually believing a lot of stuff that doesn't feel like truth. It's like we're going to have to be so keen on deciphering the truth. And the only way to do that is if you're connected within. Otherwise, we're going to be led astray. And I'm speaking of this like it's some future event, but it's actually not. It's actually not. We're already seeing it. The wealthy just got wealthier in the last month. The people who were really highly invested in the market, do you know what they did? Most of them bought more because they knew that this was a show. As a show. But if you went into fear and uncertainty, you wouldn't know that. So, point here is the takeaway is you've done nothing wrong. The great thing is there's opportunity always, always. And we're going to see a lot more of this. We're down for another 3.5 years of this. So if I were you, I would start building up my practice for money neutrality, and I would start learning how to expand money because of two things. Number one, your safety in the future and financial freedom is directly related to your ability to stay in money neutrality because you can make millions and millions of dollars now. And if you go somehow in the future and you see someone speaking on a microphone and they're telling you something that is not true and you move a different direction, you see what I'm saying? Your safety is in your own truth. You know that when it comes to spirituality. You feel that when it comes to love. Money's the same thing. So step into the responsibility to allow money in so that you can actually create a money structure around you that provides financial freedom. Now, financial freedom has nothing to do with an amount because the amount's going to change. Financial freedom comes from can you be completely free and untouchable no matter what the economy does? That's financial freedom. And that comes from diversification, and that comes from commitment, and that comes from money neutrality. Because you can't put in enough effort right now in order to achieve financial freedom to the level that you would want. And the reason why is because it's not 1950 anymore. The cost of living right now is so high in comparison to the income that the math doesn't work anymore. Investing now is as important as going to the grocery store. It's just that you haven't really embodied that because it's probably still a concept outside of you. So there is no such thing as uncertainty when you're actually creating your financial future. So one of the things that I was saying at the beginning of the month, is 4 weeks ago when everything went to hell, is stay true to your wealth plan. because there's never anything that can go on that's big enough to knock you off your course of what you desire and want in life. And so whatever you took from this, because this was a lot, whatever you took from this, please go deeper on that and leave the rest. Like, this is not here's your step-by-step process and you need to do it just like this. In fact, don't do it just like this. Mix it around. Send me a message on Instagram. Send me a DM if you have questions, you want to go deeper on this, and I'll incorporate it into another podcast. Join the Spiritual Investor Club. It's $17 a month. You can get your feet wet. Whatever you need to support you, it doesn't really matter. Or if you've got someone else who is talking about money that you resonate with, what really matters is how can you connect money with your own truth so that feeling and system becomes one, because money is a 3D concept and your own truth is universal. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to collapse it. You're trying to bring the bridge in so that those are just, in fact, one. So, all right. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to see you and talk to you and co-create with you on future episodes. All right. So much love to you. Thank you for listening to this podcast and for expanding your own wealth capacity so that you can begin living a bigger life and also influence others. And speaking of that, if you found this podcast valuable, then others will too. So please help us get the word out and share. And if you have any questions or thoughts, I'm here to help. You can reach me on Instagram at Elizabeth Ralph. I answer all of my DMs personally because we're in this together and we're all working towards the same higher consciousness level.